Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Waiting for just a couple people to log on. Hi, Jim.
You holding up well?
Yes, doing pretty good. What about you?
I think so. I had a little bit, spent only an hour in the pool, and then I had a canceled contract today, and then I had run an hour in replace of it. So.
Oh, good. Sounds like you're staying busy. All right. It looks like we have a few more people logging on here. I'm going to get started in about 2 minutes. All right, well, hello everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate you logging in today to learn about millennials. We are going to have a great class. I have some great information for you guys. First off, can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear. Perfect. All right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Liz Dysart. I am with the Crawford team at VIP Mortgage, and we are a power partner, one of my home group's power partners. But we work with a lot of the top agents in the Valley. And over my years in the industry, I've been in the industry about 10 years on the marketing side, helping agents grow their business. I have learned a lot about this subject and really always try to keep up on marketing and how to best stay in front of different segments of the population. So today, I don't know why it shows you as the speaker, Jim. I can't get you off there instead of me. Sorry, I'm trying to get Jim off there so that you guys can see me speaking instead of Jim. Let's see.
I must have hit something, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to get like the meeting screen to go like over the top. I don't know why it's not doing that.
I see you, Liz.
You do see me?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I see you. So that's strange. All right. Well, we'll get going then. Okay, so today we are going to talk about marketing to millennials. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about because I am a millennial. And at first, when I heard that, I was shocked because I thought I can't possibly be a millennial. But it's true. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. There's a ton of misinformation about this demographic of Americans. But really today, what we're going to focus on is who are the millennials? How do they communicate? What do they value? And then how can you translate that into good marketing on the real estate side? So that's really what we're going to dive into. I like to start with this infographic here. There's some really good information there. This shows that millennials were born between 1980 and 2000. Now that is kind of a loose definition, and I'll show you on the next screen that there's some varying and differing ideas of exactly what those year ranges are. But there's also some really good stats on here. What really sets millennials apart is that they grew up alongside technology. So very different than a lot of other generations. I know that I was introduced to computers in like 2nd grade in school, working on them regularly. And that's very common with other people in this demographic. Also, it shows that there's currently 80 million millennials in the United States. That's also a debatable number, but this was what they said, and 2.5 billion millennials worldwide. So some good stats to start with. But what we will talk about first is who are the millennials? And after doing a lot of research, I found out that there was a ton of differing ideas about this exactly. And the reason why is, unlike a lot of other generations that were defined by a particular milestone in history, for example, you know, the Great Depression, the generations after that, things like that, where there was a specific event in history that defined a generation, there really wasn't for the millennials. There really wasn't a clear-cut break of when that started. But in all of my research, kind of the aggregate that I found was born from 1981 to 1996. So that would be people that are ages 22 to 39, give or take. One of the most interesting things about this demographic is they're the most diverse of all generations. 46% of millennials identify as minorities, which is really awesome. I think that's a stat that I love to see, because I think in previous generations, being a minority wasn't as celebrated as it is these days. In current culture, people are a lot more accepting of minorities, whatever minority group it is. People are proud, and there's all sorts of different festivals and cultural things where people celebrate whatever their group or interest is. And so because of that, a lot more people are comfortable identifying as a minority. So of the millennial population, 46% identify that way. So that's something to keep in mind. By 2030, 75% of the workforce will consist of millennials. So obviously the lion's share of our workforce. And with that, what does that mean? Who's going to be buying homes? Millennials also. There are currently 70 million in the US instead of 80. I found 70 in most of the research that I did. Another shocking stat was that millennials have $200 billion in purchasing power. And that was something we're going to talk about a little bit more as the class goes on, but definitely very interesting, and it goes against the stereotype that all millennials are broke and live with their parents, and we're going to talk about that too. And lastly, the thing I wanted to point out is millennials are digitally savvy quality seekers. So because they are so accustomed to using technology on a daily basis since they were young, they are very, very digitally savvy. And quality seekers mean that they appreciate quality things and they're willing to research to find them. So we're going to talk about that, how that affects our clients in real estate. Now, here are some stereotypes that I wanted to touch on. This was an actual cover of Time magazine. It's a little old now. I think it was from 2013, but it said, the me generation, millennials are lazy, entitled narcissists who still live with their parents. And then the subheading was why they'll save us all. And I know that millennials absolutely hated this representation because a lot of it was really not true. And I think there are kind of, two different groups of millennials. There's the older millennials and the younger millennials. The older millennials are really those, I'd say, from like 33 to 39. And then the younger group of millennials is that 24 to 33 range. There is a little bit of difference between the two, and I'll kind of talk about why that is in a minute. But the older generation of millennials, I know when I saw this, I was angry because I'm like, I'm a millennial and I have already bought 2 houses by now. I'm not lazy and living with my parents. So there was a lot of frustration by the millennial demographic, the older millennials who were working, who were making money and purchasing houses when they see things like this published in the media. So the first stereotype here that's displayed, the me generation, a lot of the older generations don't really understand millennials' priorities, and because of that, millennials are seen as selfish, when in reality, they're hardworking professionals, but just have different goals than their parents and grandparents did. So we're going to talk about what those are coming up. The next stereotype, that millennials are lazy, is also one that I think is very unfortunate, because in reality, they're not lazy. They just have different priorities than previous generations. We're also going to talk about what those priorities are. And then the last stereotype depicted here was that they live with their parents. And the reality is that nope, they don't. 42% of millennials own a home versus 16% who live with their parents still. And another interesting stat that I found in my research is that the median home buying age has not changed from 1970 to now. Does that shock anybody else? Everyone says, oh, people are waiting longer to buy homes, right? I keep hearing that. It's not true. When you actually go back and look at the demographics and the data on that, what would you guys say is the median home buying age? Does anybody want to type into chat or chime in if you have a guess? See a couple here. Let's see what they say. 29, 27 were the two guesses. So median home buying age from 1970, I had Theo guess 26, 1970 up to 2019 has stayed between 30.6 to 31. So it's right around 30 or 31 has been the median home buying age for over 40 years. So I think, you know, really that it hasn't changed. It's just the stereotypes that make people think that it has. So we'll talk more about those as we go. But is that shocking to anybody? It's, I think, you know, pretty true when you look at it. It really hasn't changed. And most of the people in, you know, by the time they're hitting that 30 or 31 mark, what's happening in people's lives, right? They're settling down, getting engaged or married, and thinking about children. So that makes sense that that would be the time that they're purchasing their first home. So that, you know, really hasn't changed over the years. Now, next slide, a little bit more information about millennial home buyers. And this is what we care about, right? I'm on the lending side, you guys are on the real estate side. And this is what we want to know. You know, what do we need to know about millennial home buyers? So millennials were the largest segment of buyers in 2019 at 37%, according to NAR, the National Association of Realtors. So 37% of all homes purchased in the United States were by a millennial, which was pretty surprising to me. That's a huge percentage of purchases. When I did a little bit more research, I found that the millennials have actually been the largest segment of home buyers for the last 5 years, but the percentage keeps going up every year. So last year is the highest that it has ever been at 37%. Additionally, millennials represented about 48% of all purchase loans last year. And in 2020, they're expected to pass 50% of all purchase loans this year. So that makes sense. A lot of people in, you know, a little bit older demographics may have more money saved up to be able to pay cash for a house or purchase a second home that they're paying cash for, or they're moving up and using their equity in their new house. So maybe they don't need those loans, but most millennials do need loans to purchase homes, and we'll talk about that at the end. But wow, 50% of all loans this year are by millennials. That's pretty crazy. So that myth of that, you know, millennials don't buy houses, they're just renting, is not true. They are buying and buying at really big rates. The next thing was there was a shift in interest in what millennials wanted. For a long time, I'm sure you guys heard the stereotype, it was that millennials only wanted a little like loft, right? In the middle of downtown, a tiny little place in the middle of the city center where they could walk everywhere and have access to public transportation. Last year, we really saw a change in that nationally, and there was more of a shift in interest to what they call a suburban downtown, which means more single family areas, but still near a city center. So maybe a 15, 20, 30-minute commute away from a major metropolitan city, but where they do have more room and they are trending towards single family homes more than condos. Another thing about millennial home buyers is that they have been coined the pickiest generation. And why do you guys think that is? I'm going to ask you to chime in the chat if you have any ideas on why you think they would be called the pickiest generation. I'll give you a hint. What kind of TV is popular over the last 5 years? I see a couple chats coming in. I'm going to see what they say, what your guesses are. HGTV, ding, ding. So yes, you got it correct. So the HGTV craze and reality TV, like Elizabeth guessed, has really made a big impact on what millennials want when they see homes. because of all the HGTV shows, the fix or flip shows, they have kind of a jaded idea of what you can get when you buy a house, right? As you see on a lot of those shows, they buy a house for 100,000 and put 50,000 into it and it looks picture perfect, right? But what they're not telling you is that all those materials were donated to be on the show. A lot of the times they're not telling you the real costs of those projects. And millennials don't understand that all the time, but what they see is, well, they are 20 something or 30 something and have this picture perfect house. Why can't I? And same thing with reality TV. We're getting a better look than we ever have in the past of what people's homes look like. And because of that, it's now very trendy to have that kind of picture perfect looking home that's Instagram worthy, and millennials are looking for that. So when they're going out to buy, they are not likely to buy a rundown home and have the mentality of, oh, well, we're going to buy it and live here for 30 years and we'll have time to fix it up. That's not the mentality. A lot of people in previous generations, that was the mentality. Buy a starter home, we have time to fix it up, we can remodel over time as long as the bones are good. With millennials, they're not really wanting projects, most millennials. There are a small segment that does, that are really the design savvy ones, but the majority of millennials want a move-in ready, upgraded home. And so because of that, they are being coined as the pickiest generation. This graphic on the right, I really like. It talks about millennial buyers and their preferences. So the top graph, you'll see that 75% of millennials are first-time buyers, 25% are repeat buyers. That I'd say is pretty true with all of the millennials that I know. And then the top 5 reasons millennials buyers choose a home. Now, these were really interesting to me. Number 1 was financial reasons. So that shows you that millennials are still looking at their homes as an investment or at least as part of their financial picture. So that is something to keep in mind. Number 2 is that they like the size of the home. Number 3 is the layout and design of the home. Number 4 is the neighborhood. And number 5 is the quality of construction. And I was pretty shocked when I saw this, and I called my grandma and asked her, I said, Grandma, what did you look at when you guys bought a home? And she said, number 1, we wanted a well-built house. Number 2, we wanted a good family neighborhood. Number 3, we wanted room, and design wasn't even in there. It wasn't even a factor. She said, I could make it nice. I could put on, change the wallpaper. She could design it how she needed, or she was comfortable looking at it as a long-term project. But as you can see, millennials do not think of their homes that way. That's not what they're looking for. And then on the bottom, the top 5 reasons for millennial buyers to move. Number 1 is to establish their own household. So as you know, the ones that are living with their parents, even though that's not most common, what's most common for millennials that don't own is they live in a rented house with other millennials. And I did this when I was in college. I rented a nice house and I shared it with 3 other girlfriends and we split the rent. And I feel like that's what a lot of millennials do if they haven't purchased a home yet. Or sometimes if they do purchase a home, then they rent their rooms out to friends. And I also did that when I was in my 20s. I bought a home and rented rooms out to 2 friends to help me pay my mortgage. So number 1 reason is to establish own household. Number 2 is needed a larger unit. Number 3 is the desire to own. Number 4 is a new job or job transfer. And number 5 was live in a higher quality unit. Now that again is very different than previous generations. When I asked my parents and grandparents, why did you want to move? The number 1 reason was they wanted to own their own home, or they wanted, which is the same, establish their own household or move home. But others, it was usually a larger unit. They needed to move up because of their family size. So a little bit different. And then if you look at the price distribution graph here of homes purchased, the largest segment of millennials is purchasing in that $150,000 to $249,000 price point. I'd say that probably is pretty standard. And if you look at Maricopa County, our average price point in Maricopa is like $280,000 to $300,000. So that falls kind of right in there. But with that, there are still a pretty good segment that are purchasing in the higher end properties. In our market here, the first 2 categories, under 100 or under 150, there's really not much in Maricopa County for that price. So our price points here are a little different, but that just shows you the distribution of overall homes purchased. Let's see here. Someone raised their hand, I saw. Jim?
Yeah, in that graph, do we have an as of date? Yeah, do you know what date that came out?
I don't actually. Let's see. It probably has it on the bottom. My screen changed here. I'm trying to figure out.
Mine too.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how I can get it back the way that it was. 1 second. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So it was from Keeping Current Matters, Jim, and they are one of my favorite news sources on the real estate side. I check there for a lot of infographics. I assume that it was from 2019, but I can get back to you on that, Jim. I'm not exactly sure when that was. And I'm going to check in the chat. There was a few questions that popped in here. All right. Oh, yep. Yeah. And Nancy, yes, we can get I can share the slides with you from class. Absolutely. Okay. So more things you need to know about millennial home buyers. NAR reported that every year they publish the Home Buyer and Seller Generational Trends Report. The National Association of Realtors does. The one that came out in 2018, which I have and would be happy to send you guys a copy of if you would like, showed that 81% of older millennials, which is my demographic, that kind of, older 30s, they found their home through a mobile app. 81%. So what does that tell you guys as agents? What does that tell you? You need to have a mobile app, right? So that shows you that they aren't, they're not citing that they found it through their realtor. They're not citing that they found it on Zillow. They're citing that they found it through a mobile app. So that shows you that if you don't have a mobile-friendly application to keep people searching off of those other search sites where they're going to get sold as a lead, then you're really missing out on a big segment of this population. So I would encourage you to find a mobile app that you can utilize. There's several good ones that I can recommend. One that we provide to our clients, it's a co-branded app that you can use for free, is called Mobility RE. It's a really fabulous one, but it basically is meant to mimic how the searches on Zillow and Realtor.com work. So they're all map centered, but the buyer can then save searches, save favorites. They can go in and when they're driving around, pull up open houses near them. And then you're able to see as the agent everything that they viewed. You can chat with them through the app. So having a tool like that for agents or for your consumers to use is really important. And especially people that you meet, well, I mean, not that we're really doing open houses in person these days, but when you meet people at open houses, you can say, here, I'm going to text you my app. You can feel free to search, and any of those properties, I can answer any questions on anything that you see. But for a lot of them, setting them up on a portal isn't enough. That information is kind of old by the time that it gets to them. And they don't want to just be emailed the listings that come. They want full search access, just like you do. They want to kind of do their own research. So give them a platform where they have the ability to do so. Another thing that is that according to the New York Post, 25% of millennials say that they have saved over $100,000. And that was pretty shocking. And I think that really goes against the stereotype that, millennials don't have down payments, right? It's not true. And I know a big majority of my friends that have purchased homes have put 20% down or, are able to purchase kind of a higher priced home because they have saved for it for a lot of years. So I think that we need to keep that in mind as well, is that, don't assume that they're broke or don't have a down payment. Make sure that you're asking all the questions that you need to really dive into their situation and figure out how you can best serve them. And this stat I loved as well. Millennials are expected to form 20 million new households by 2025. Shocking, right? But I believe it. If you think about it, like I said, all these millennials that are cohabitating, they're all, sharing homes, are looking to start their own households because they're going to be wanting to get married and start families, a large majority of them. So that really goes in line with what I said earlier. So if there's going to be 20 million, millennial home sales, how do we get some of those? How do you guys as agents market to millennials to find them? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Before we do though, I want to talk about some more myths versus reality in regards to millennials. So we already kind of mentioned this one. All millennials want a tiny hip apartment near Avocado Toast Central, right? The whole hipster thing. And as I said, No, that's not true. Millennials want an 1,800 square foot single family home in the suburbs just as much, because a lot of them, as I said, are looking to settle down and eventually have a family. So they're thinking a little bit more practical than they maybe were 10 years ago when they were in their late 20s. The next myth is that if it's not walkable, millennials won't look at it. That's not true either. Millennials are driving their kids to school, daycares, and good elementary schools. So they care about all of those practical aspects about the neighborhood just as much. Number 3, millennials are drowned in student debt and can't afford housing. That's not true either. Their down payments are larger than ever, and for some, their savings are peaking. And that's what the New York Post also agreed with. 25% have over 100 grand in the bank. Additionally, student debt, as I'll show you, really doesn't have that much impact on what they can qualify for. I'll show you that in a minute. So you shouldn't count student debt as a detriment to them purchasing a home. The next stereotype is millennials can't compete against other generations. That's not true. They'll take more mortgages than boomers and Gen Xers combined this spring. Pretty shocking, but true. And then the last thing is millennials want a recession to hit hard so that prices come down to earth. Also not true. They feel the same way about the next recession as every other generation. They welcome a correction, but always root for the economy because they've seen what has happened and what happened to their parents when the whole housing economy collapsed. So that's something that's definitely not true. They are very financially conscious. So some things that we're going to talk about here. What do millennials value? How do they communicate? And with that, I want to say first, number 1 preferred method of communication in the millennial demographic is text message. Yes, you read that right. Number 2 is via social media, mostly direct messages. Number 3 is email, and number 4 was phone. Now, do you guys agree with that? Is that what you've seen? Yep, I see some people shaking their heads. I absolutely agree with that. I know for me, I generally don't want to talk on the phone to people. I usually screen my calls and wait for voicemail because there's so many robodials these days. Email, if it's long and lengthy, I'm obviously not for work, I'm talking about outside of work, but I think, emails need to be short and concise and to the point. But I prefer text message as my number 1 method of communication, as do other millennials. And also with millennials, flexibility and mobility are key in communication. What do I mean by that? Mobility, a lot of millennials do jobs where they're not sitting at a desk all day, every day. They're on the go, they're in sales, they're working from coffee shops, they're a small business owner. They have different jobs than previous generations that have them on the go all the time. So they need to be able to communicate from their cell phone, respond to emails on their cell phone, and all of the internet searches that they're looking at generally are on their cell phone, because they're not like previous generations where they have a lot of time during the day at a desk at a computer. So it's important that we're communicating that way. And then what do millennials expect from their experience? Number 1, respect. Number 2, timely service. Number 3, an experience. So the easiest way to turn off a millennial is to not treat them with respect. They feel like they have earned it. They've worked hard to save that money for their down payment, and they should be treated with respect just as anybody in any other generation would. Timely service is a very important one because they have grown up in that digital world. They have had access to any information they wanted at any time of day. So they expect you to respond to them just as timely. Even if you don't have the answer for them right then, still text back and say, hey, I'm not sure, checking into that, I'll get right back to you. But at least respond right away so that they don't feel like you're ghosting them, right? And then number 3 is they want an experience. Above all, millennials generally view experiences over possessions. So with that, you need to give them an experience in the home buying or selling process that they can remember. That's really what they're gonna want, they're gonna value, they're gonna appreciate. And we'll talk more about that as we go. And then lastly, what are their barriers to success in the home buying process or selling? And that is distrust of the norm. And we'll talk more about that right here. So first one, what do they value? So this is a chart that I loved and was kind of shocking. So number 1, global outlook. So 2 out of 5 millennials have traveled abroad in the last 3 years. That's a pretty strong number. You know, that's almost 50%. 40% of millennials have traveled abroad in the last 3 years. If you ask previous generations, they didn't travel abroad until they were, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. And now a lot of millennials have been abroad multiple times. So that's a different mentality than previous generations. So they'd rather spend a few $1,000s on a big trip than a few $1,000s on a piece of furniture or something that they would have as a possession. The next one is student debt. So 81% of millennials have less than $50,000 in student loans, and less than $50,000 in student loans has limited to no impact on home ownership rates. So with that, their ability to qualify, if they have under $50,000 in student loans, it's really not going to affect their ability to qualify for a loan. It's when you really get into the, you know, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in student loans that there does become, you know, they do have to factor that in the qualification process. But thankfully, 81% are not in that situation. And the next one, tech savvy, 90% own a smartphone and spend an average of 35 hours per week on social media. Wow, yes, you read that right, 35 hours a week. That's 7 hours a day. You know, if you do 5 days a week, or 5 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's pretty shocking. So what does that tell you? Where do you guys need to be communicating, and where do you need to be present and relevant on social media? Relationship, 84% of millennials will rely on referrals. So that shows you with the millennial demographic, referrals are the most important thing that you can get from them. Desire to own, 90% of young renters reported a desire to own a home someday. So that's good. They have a positive outlook on home ownership. So that's very positive. 38% of millennials said they would postpone a wedding to put a down payment on a house. And that is very true. I see that all the time. People would rather have either the big expensive wedding or the big expensive honeymoon over and still rent, rather than using that money towards a down payment on a house. So that is that segment. So keep that in mind when you're talking to people. Investment, 87% of millennial homeowners said that they thought their home was a good investment. So again, a really positive outlook on home ownership. And accessibility, 62% of millennials said they would prefer to live in a city center than a suburb, like we already talked about, because of all kind of the cultural stuff going on. More about what they value, this was a really interesting chart to me. So if you look at the left side, the values that are stronger for millennials are happiness, passion, diversity, sharing, and discovery were the 5 highest ranked values for the millennial demographic. Let me read those again. Happiness, passion, diversity, sharing, and discovery. If you look at older generations, their 5 strongest values were justice, integrity, family, practicality, and duty. Very different words. And if you notice, none of them overlap. So the old marketing messages for homeownership about, you know, family and practical and doing what's right, those do not work with millennials. That is not what resonates with them. You have to make it about, you know, changing your messaging to incorporate the values that are important to them. So what do you think is going to make you happiest? You know, passion, diversity, sharing, discovery. Those are the words. So when you're speaking to millennials, you need to make it more about their lifestyle, you know, to understand their lifestyle, what they're into, and incorporate those into their home buying process so that they get more emotionally bought into the process. But ultimately, happiness is the #1 one for millennials. So we have to talk about, you know, the benefits that homeownership can bring in happiness, passion, discovery, and all of those types of things. This was a really funny one I wanted to include. Millennials are a pet-loving generation. So 7 in 10 millennials own a pet, and they are the largest segment of pet owners. I was shocked to hear that, but I do believe it. 67% of millennials look at their pet as part of their family, and they want an outdoor space for their pet. The main reason that they want a home with a yard, well, before they have children, is for their dog. And if you ask them that, their dog is very important. If they're buying a house, they want a yard for their dog. And I've seen this with a lot of young home buyers that we've worked with. when you speak to them, they literally talk about their dog in conversations. Oh yeah, you know, Riley would love this yard. Oh great, it has a dog door for Riley, you know, so that is very important at them. And if they consider their pet a member of their family, you have to consider that pet also and talk about their pet as a member of their family. So it's very important. And this was a stat that I loved as well. 80% of renters with dogs will buy a house within 2 years. Why is that? Because they get so tired of having to get up early and walk downstairs from their condo and let their dog out to go to the bathroom multiple times a day, right? So so that's a great segment of people to market to. If renters with dogs are living in condos or apartments, the likelihood of them buying a house within 2 years is 80%. So that's pretty strong odds. So I'd say a great segment of the population to market to. All right, and what we talked about earlier, different priorities from previous generations. It's not that they're lazy and don't want to do things, it's just that they want to do them in a different order. So this chart I really loved. This shows the percentage of 18 to 31-year-olds who are married and living in their own household. Now, as you see in 1968 on the far right, 56% of 18 to 31-year-olds were married and living in their own household. In 2012, which was the last time that they did this stat, it was 23%. So you read that right. The percentage of people married and living in their own household in that age bracket has dropped by more than 50% since the 1950s. And that doesn't mean that they're, again, still living with their parents. It means that they could be renting and living with other millennials of their same age group. So what it used to be in the 60s was the old adage, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby and the baby carriage. That was kind of the motto that everyone was programmed, right? You find somebody, you get married, you have a house, you have a baby, right? And now, really, the experience is different for millennials. Their priorities, first comes travel, then comes finding myself, then comes exploring passions. And if I meet someone along the way that fits in with my passions and my lifestyle, maybe we'll settle down and maybe we'll buy a house. And maybe after we get our careers going, then we'll have kids. So it's just a different order. So you need to keep that in mind when you are communicating with millennials. It's not that they're lazy, it's just that they have different priorities than previous generations. Now, why is that? The main reason is because millennials have a serious distrust in corporate America and our financial system. Why is that? So what age group are millennials' parents? Think about that. They're the people that, in their 60s, right? 60s, 70s, some 50s, but a lot of people in those age groups are either have known someone or have maybe been laid off from corporate America because they're bringing in younger people who that they can pay less. In a lot of big companies, they've done those type of things. So millennials look at it as, why would I take a job working for corporate America, slaving away and hardly getting any raises for all these years just to get laid off when I'm older? You know, they don't trust that. They've seen that happen to people in their parents' generation. And with the financial system, they've seen the crashes. When the crash happened here, look at when it happened in 05, 06, 07, that whole thing that happened, how old were they? That was when they were in their, teens, 20s. So they really remember that. That really resonated with them. And so they have a distrust in the housing industry. They watch their parents' mistakes. Everyone that I know that's my age knows somebody, their parents or their parents' friends had to short sell because they bought their house, and the market, it was worth so much money, or they put a lot of money into the house, and then guess what? Everything crashed. Values were 50% of what they had into the properties. And I know in my life, I saw that happen. My best friend's parents built a house in Aviano when it was first opening near Desert Ridge. They, built it from the builder. I think they spent about $450 to build it. They put about another $450 into the house. They did all hardscape, beautiful fireplace, barbecue pit, pool, every upgrade they could put in. It was appraised for 1.2 in the peak of the market. And then guess what? They short sold it for 450,000. And they lost all their savings that they had put into their house that they looked at as their retirement. And I think that's really unfortunate that that happened. But because that happened, a lot of millennials are very concerned about that happening again. So they have researched that and what's going on, and they know about what home values should be. So that's something to keep in mind as well. They're not, blind to what's going on in our housing market. 82% of millennials invest regularly in their financial goals, so they have a long-term plan, so that's something to keep in mind. Millennials are also socially and environmentally conscious. So socially conscious, what I mean by that is that they care about what their friends think of them, right? So that's the whole, joke where you hear about the $30,000 millionaires, the millennials that are driving a Mercedes and living in an apartment. And you'll see that a lot. I always joke, my girlfriend lives in a condo complex and she pays, I think, $800 a month for rent for her condo. And there literally are two Maseratis, new Maseratis parked in her parking lot. And it just baffles me. I'm like, what are these people doing driving a Maserati and living in a little apartment? But it's because they really care about what people think. They're socially conscious. So they want it to appear like they've got it all going on. Or maybe they're saving to buy that picture perfect home. But they're also environmentally conscious. They really care about the environment. A lot of them are concerned about environmental effects and how it's going to affect our planet long term. So they're interested maybe in greenhousing. They're interested in what their AC bill is going to be, and all of those type of things. They're not as income driven as previous generations. Millennials typically value experiences over possessions, and I agree with that all day long. So I asked my parents this, after you got married, what were the things you wanted to buy, or what did you spend your money on? And it was nice furniture. That's what they told me. My parents were like, we spent our money on one nice furniture piece, and then when we saved up, we bought another nice furniture piece, and it was things that we were going to have for 30 years and pass down to you, right? That's what they told me. And if my age bracket, they don't care as much about that. They'd rather go on a trip to Europe, spend the $3,000 doing that than on a possession. So we need to keep that in mind. And I think also another major factor that plays into the millennial mind is instant service and reviews. We have grown up with that, right? It's the whole cabs versus Uber thing. So I remember when you had to go to a payphone and dial 2525252, right, for the cab, and wait until you didn't get a busy signal, keep calling back. But nowadays with Uber and Amazon and all these things and Instacart and DoorDash, millennials have been trained that everything is immediately available to them. And 57% of millennials compare prices in the store with online sources and reviews. And I know I do that. If I'm at Costco and there's a new product that I am interested in purchasing, I quickly check Amazon, see how many reviews it has, how many stars, and what the price is. If it's a lot cheaper on Amazon, I'm literally going to order it on Amazon and have it delivered to my house than purchasing it at Costco. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. They're very conscious and willing to do research. All right, some more stats about millennials. 92% own smartphones, 69% read product reviews. So that's what I was talking about. 47% use social media during the shopping journey. 37% spend more due to their use of digital. Those are like the online purchases. And 29% have responded to location-based offers. So again, very digital consumer group. Now, how do you guys reach them? So the one way that I think you guys as agents can reach millennials is on social media. They are on there, as we saw earlier, on average of 5 hours a day. Now, when I looked into which platforms and things like that, I was kind of surprised. So what I thought that it was going to be Instagram. But what actually I found was the percentage of millennials using Facebook daily is higher than the overall average. 77% of millennials use Facebook daily. Now, 70% use Instagram daily, And I think that, again, plays into the older millennial versus younger millennial thing. I think the younger millennials are more present on Instagram. The older millennials with families are more present on Facebook. And then the remainder of the platforms, 66% use YouTube daily, 54% use Twitter daily, 47% use Snapchat daily, 41% use Reddit daily, 38% use Pinterest daily, and 28% use TikTok daily. So where does that tell you guys about where you should be trying to reach millennials? But what I would pay more attention to is the bottom chart here. Not only, I mean, it's great that they're on those platforms, but where are they engaging most? That's really where you want to be, because it's not just about posting and posting and posting. It's about the engagement that you can get on social media to build relationships, to connect with millennials. So this bottom chart here shows which social media platform is the most effective for growing engagements. By far and away, it's Instagram at 59%. So in my opinion, if you are going to try to market and connect with millennials, your best platform would be Instagram, followed by Facebook. And that's what this chart shows as well. I see a couple chats popping in, so I'm going to respond to those. LinkedIn, Jim, as you see there, it didn't even register, so it must be less than 28% that use LinkedIn daily. I know for me, and a lot of other people that I know, they really only use LinkedIn when they're changing jobs in my demographic. I know in older demographics, LinkedIn has become a lot more popular again, but really not with millennials, unless they're looking for a career change or to build connections professionally. But as a social platform, they're really not on LinkedIn. And then Elizabeth, isn't it true that they engage more through Instagram stories than Instagram? Yes, 100% Elizabeth, that is true. Most people find like a 3 times engagement rate on stories versus posts. However, I'm sure that whoever did this study can't differentiate. It's just overall data. So I'm sure that's why it's not broken down. They didn't break it down on Facebook either. But yes, Instagram stories are definitely the #1 way to build engagement on that platform. I know Stephanie Lugo teaches an amazing Instagram class. I would encourage you guys to watch it. But she says that 1 in 4 story posts should produce a direct message. And I know in mine, I get about 3 times the views on my stories than I do on my posts, or at least engagement. So I would definitely say Instagram stories are a very great place to spend your time. Let's see what else. So with that though, what else do you have to keep in mind? You need to optimize all of your content for social and mobile. So millennials really believe that social media presence is a badge of acceptance. And this is true. We're programmed this way and we don't even know it. So I attended the Inc. 500 Gala last year and was very pleasantly surprised that the #1 company on the Inc. 500 list was an Arizona, Scottsdale-based company. And I was like, holy cow, I can't believe it. I've never heard of this company before. So at the gala, I got out my phone and went to Instagram to search for this company without even thinking about it. And I think that that's true. That's what millennials, that's where they go to kind of validate people or companies. So for you guys, you need to be on there. And when you're structuring your campaigns for social media, you need to make sure they're approachable and engaging. And if you're going to have any sort of landing pages that you tag, if they're not mobile responsive, you're going to lose millennials. Meaning, if your website doesn't work and function very well on a smartphone this way and this size, millennials will just get right off of it. They get so annoyed if websites aren't mobile friendly. You shouldn't have to resize or scroll around. So I encourage you guys all to make sure that any sites that you're linking them to or sending them to are optimized for mobile. And with that, yeah, so it'll discourage them, leading to abandonment and even lack of trust in the brand if you're not mobile friendly and present on social media. All right, so now we're going to talk about some great social media strategies that really resonate with millennials. So #1 is keep your end goal in mind. Your goal should be connecting with people, not selling homes. And I see this mistake on social media all the time. Agents celebrating the houses. It's not about the house. The house isn't going to work with you again. It's the clients that are going to work with you again. So you always need to celebrate people, not homes. And when everything that you post on social media, you need to think about it. The goal is connecting with people, building relationships with people who could buy or sell a house with me. And when you think of your post that way, you're going to not want to necessarily post about the house. You're going to post about the story of the house. You're going to ask a question about the house, or you're going to do things that yield engagement and ultimately build relationships. Number two, you're going to be really strategic about what you post. I think it used to just be like, post as much as you want, right? I kind of discourage that, especially on Instagram. Be a little bit strategic about what you post. If you're not sure if it's a good post, then put it in your Instagram story. Otherwise, on Instagram especially, pretty photos really work. Use visually appealing content to get traction on Instagram. I think on Facebook, it's still a little bit more liberal with that, but definitely on Instagram, it's all about the pretty photos. Adjust your settings on both Instagram and Facebook. Allow tags, so allow other people to tag you in posts and turn on activity broadcasts. And what that means is when you check in somewhere at a place, it will broadcast that to your friends to try to build engagement with your followers. So that's a way to help build your organic following on social media. The next one is be seen at local hotspots. And I know that sounds silly, but that's what Instagram, or that's what millennials care about. They want to know about the best new restaurants in town, the best new bars in town, the cool dog parks. They want to know about the great, whatever photo walls there are, right? There's all these pop-up photo shops now all around town. And those are the kind of things that millennials see and post on social media that really attracts them. So make that type of content. The next thing is connect with influencers and other millennials. And the last thing is appeal to FOMO. And FOMO means fear of missing out. And that is something that definitely works for millennials. Millennials, as I said, value experiences. So if they see all these cool things happening on social media, they want to be doing it too. So that's where you can really appeal to it. A great example of that and how you can do it for real estate is this post that I put right here. So this was a post from Seattle, and it was a lender and a real estate agent did the post together. And the post was another packed www.beersandhomebuying.com. So that's their slogan that they've coined. Class for Seattle, #Amazon, #Facebook, and #Google employees. 29 first-time homebuyers are feasting on valuable info. And then they have some little emojis here and great Italian food. I think we're doing something right over here with the target. Hey, I want to be your mortgage lender, with some more emojis. And it's a picture of a cool-looking long table with food and drinks and lots of young people, and a lender and a real estate agent doing a presentation about first-time home buying. Now, this is an awesome post, right? How much cooler does this seem than, hi, yeah, do you want to have a buyer consultation for me to talk to you about buying a house? That's a little bit of a harder sell. An event like this, it appeals to fear of missing out. It appeals to the hotspot thing. It appeals to the other millennial thing. So when they see this, they're a lot more likely to want to engage. And what else that this person did so right was it geotagged the restaurant, it tagged the agent, and it tagged the #Facebook, #Google, #Amazon. All of those things, doing geotags, doing hashtags, all that actually helps your organic reach with social media. So what I mean by that is it opens it up if some people are able to search by the geotag or the hashtag, and if they're near you, your post will show in their feed or in their search without you even being friends with them. So it's a great way for you to gain more organic followers by geotagging and hashtagging. Another thing, as I said, is with social media, the goal really should be try to build relationships through engagement, right? So it's not so much about how many likes you're getting on your photos. It's really more about how many comments are you getting? How many direct messages are you getting? You really want the engagement because those are your opportunities to work with those people. That's where you have an opportunity to build a relationship with a consumer who would want to work with you. Forbes reported that 62% of millennials surveyed said that they were more likely to become a customer if a company, meaning you're a real estate company, engaged with them personally on their social media channels. So you need to be engaging with millennials' social media channels. So look up and connect with other millennials in the area who aren't agents, obviously, and try to connect with them, comment on their posts, and maybe they'll do it back. This was a great example of a post that got ginormous engagement. So this was a giveaway, which you don't always have to do, but they gave away a $500 gift card. And it was Molly Rundle. She's an agent with my home group. And she said, should we do a giveaway again? It's a $500 Target gift card. All you had to do was like the photo and follow them. And she split it with another agent, by the way, and tag a friend. And they had a chance to win a $500 gift card. She got 471 likes, but she got over 2,000 comments. And the comments, right, are the opportunities to build the relationships. That's where, even if they weren't the ones who won the gift card, you can still direct message every single person and say, thank you for entering my contest. I'm so sorry, but so-and-so, another person won. If you have any questions about real estate, or if I ever can be a resource for you, I'm always here to help. Are there any questions I can answer at this time? But really, paying $500 to get 2,200 potential contacts, I mean, $500 is a lot of money, but still, how many open houses would it take for you to sit to get 2,200 contacts? A lot, right? So you can be really strategic through this, but keep in mind that engagement is really the goal with all of your social media posts. Another thing to build better connection is be authentic and personal. Talk as if you're talking to them in person. Millennials can sniff out fakes really easily, and they don't like overly salesy people. So the more that you can talk in your own tone and use your own personality, the better it's going to be. Now, these are two young millennials in our marketplace and how they talk on social media. And I wanted to show you guys this because I know so many real estate agents that really overanalyze their content. They're worried about exactly if it's how it sounds and what it says. And I'm going to tell you, don't overthink it. Literally say it as if you were saying it verbally to someone. So this person, Kelly Henderson, who was a 30 under 30 person, wrote, Phoenix peeps, want to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 this weekend for free? Momentum Real Estate Group has a private screening and we've got about 20 extra seats. PM me if you want to come. I'll get you the deets and your name on the list. So to me, like, I don't speak that way. That's not how I would talk, but that's how she talks. So it helps build a really authentic connection with people who know her because it sounds like it's her voice. This one on the right, same thing. He's literally has his shirt off by the pool, and this is his little son poking his head in. So it's very authentic and real. And this is a way that he can really be himself and connect with his audience. So don't overthink your content. Don't worry about sounding super professional. Don't worry about sounding salesy. Just be yourself, and that's where you're really going to have the best results on social media. The next really important thing is let your audience be your star. And what do I mean by that? I mean, millennials like to see themselves in the media that they consume. So instead of posting about you, post about them, post about your clients, the millennials that you work with, the people that you know. Tell the story. As we've all probably heard, storytelling and story branding is the #1 thing that's working in marketing right now. So tell the story of these clients as you're taking them through the journey. Here's a good example here. This is a Lugo, the Lugos at my home group. They posted this. Now here's a great start to the holiday. Peter just closed on his first home today. Yay, Peter! We're so excited for this guy and his cute puppy dog and are so very grateful to have been able to help him find his perfect Tempe home. So I know Stephanie very well. I can literally hear her saying that in my head as I read that. And that is a great post. When somebody can hear it and hear your voice as they read it, that is when your really authentic, true voice is shining through. On the right-hand side here, this is a client that actually posted about his agent, which is even better, right? So this gentleman wrote, "I'm a homeowner, thanks so much," and his agent's name, and tagged her for being the best real estate maven a guy could ask for, parties at my house. But it's a picture of him with a big key. It's a visually appealing picture celebrating him and letting him be the star. It's the same thing that you could have done by posting the picture of the house and it just sold, right? But this is much better because it's about the person. Let's see here. So here are some great people to follow for marketing guidance in this section, and they all really work with millennials. These are all people in our local market. One of them, Jackie Daly at the bottom, is actually in home design and decor, so it's not real estate related, but all of the rest are in real estate here locally, and they do a really awesome job at connecting with people in a really authentic way on social media. Look at them for inspiration, but I wanted to show you also how important bios are. So take a look at each of their little bios here. None of them really say, so let's look at Laura Lucky up here. She has real estate broker at, and then she tagged it, family biz, member of Troon Country Club, and dog mom. So she didn't say #1 real estate agent in North Scottsdale, 30 under 30. It's not about her really, it's more fun, creative things. Yeah, and some of the others are the same. So make sure that your profiles also are set up to really connect with people. They should have ways for people to get in touch with you, obviously information about who you are, and reasons that they should follow you ultimately. As we talked about earlier, and I know we're running out of time here, so I need to kind of hurry up, but as we talked about earlier, it was something like 80% of millennials look for referrals over anything else. 88% of millennials trust customer reviews as much as personal referrals. So that means you really need to get reviews and leverage testimonials when you do work with millennial buyers, and use those to get more of their friends to work with you ultimately, right? So make sure that you have visual reviews showing. If you don't have a Google My Business page, email me and I can help you. I'll get you instructions on how to set one up, but you should definitely have a Google business page so that it shows your reviews and ratings there. And then, even better to do those on social media. That's really powerful. So here's one. This was a client that posted all of her vendors. So Kyle, Aiden, Abby, and I have an announcement. We bought our first home this week and can't wait to start making memories here. Thank you for everyone who supported us along the way. I'm sure we're not easy to deal with in a nervous wreck. Special thanks to her real estate team, her lender, and her title company. She tagged them all. Without all of you, our home dreams wouldn't be possible. So that is like a gold post, right? That is exactly what you want your clients to do. So encourage that by posting that kind of content out there, but putting them in it, and they're more likely to reciprocate and see that that's the kind of content that you like. I had a chat here, so I'm going to pop in. All right, so next one, video. Video is so important also to connect with millennials. I'd say it's the #2 way to connect with them other than social media. Millennials are the heaviest viewers of all types of video content. You'll see there compared to all the other generations by far. In every single type of video content, millennials are the heaviest viewers. The next slide shows us some good information. Millennials watch an average of 6 hours of online content per day. They're on social media a lot, and we all know video dominates social media right now. So create videos of, showing properties, open houses, of yourself, community info, little tips, interviews, any way you can get yourself on video and are comfortable is a really great way to connect. Tell your customers stories, as we already talked about. 69% of millennials find customer testimonials helpful. And then here on the right, this is an agent in the Anthem area, and he has built such a good following because of his videos that he does. So you see, What he does is he goes and interviews local business owners and then posts them on his YouTube channel. And he gets 6,000 views, 3,000 views, 2,200 views, 2,400 views, because what he does is he then gets the business owner to push it out to their database as well. So things like that really help you grow a larger organic following. Here's some more stats on why video. I'm sure you guys have been hit on the head with these type of stats lately, so I'm not going to read each and every one. But 74% of millennials find video helpful when comparison shopping. 1 in 2 millennials will read an email from a company if it includes video. 6 in 10 millennials prefer to watch a company video rather than to read a newsletter. So there's lots and lots of reasons here about video. And now I wanted to quickly talk about, before we wrap up, the impact of COVID and how that has changed working with millennials. So, and really anybody in general. So number 1, agents must have a completely digital home buying and selling process. If you don't, I would encourage you guys, I teach a class called 15 Productive Business Activities to Complete During Quarantine. I think it's next week. That one talks a lot about that in there. How to have a completely virtual home buying and selling process. I give you some ideas of how to do that. You must provide millennials a way to search the MLS freely without being sold as a lead. So that goes back to that mobile home search app that I mentioned earlier, or a website that you have a fully IDX capable website that they can search on. Agents must be more human than ever. Ultimately, again, relationships are key. And right now, connecting with people, everyone's kind of having struggles due to our current situation. Just make your goal to connect with people, not to try to sell them, not to talk to them about real estate, just connect with them. And when you do, make sure that you're solution oriented and focus on the positive. You know, as professionals in our industry, it's really important that we're conveying accurate information, but that we're kind of maintaining a positive attitude towards it so that we're not really contributing to all the negative doom and gloom talk that's going on in regards to the housing industry, because that's simply not true. I don't know if you guys were on Tina Tambor's call yesterday, but she gave a lot of information about home values are not dropping in our local markets. That's really good news. So we need to put that information out there. And lastly, make sure you're working with a lender who understands and works with a lot of millennials. Our team, we work with a ton of millennials. Most millennials are first-time home buyers, and many of them can qualify for down payment assistance programs. There are a lot of great programs out there where millennials can get in with as little as 0% down, where all they have to pay for is inspection and appraisal. That's dependent on seller concessions, obviously. But you know, very minimal down payments are available for those who qualify. For those programs, there used to be a bad stigma that those are only for, you know, low-income home buyers, right? That's not true. You can make up to $105,000 and still qualify for a down payment assistance program. And there's no purchase price limit. So you can buy, you know, anything in the conforming loan limits, which is $510,000 or under. You can purchase a home up to that price point if you qualify with your income. So partner with a lender who's well-versed in DPA programs, who doesn't steer people away from them. There's a lot of lenders that don't like to do DPAs because they're a lot of work. So if that's the lender that you're working with, or if they kind of try to dissuade your clients into the DPA, we'd be happy to talk to them. Or even if they're not in a DPA situation, just work with a lender that's very familiar and comfortable talking to millennials, that's going to treat them with the utmost respect, provide 5-star service, and help you shine through the process. And then have resources available to provide buyers with payment scenarios. That's what they want to know. So most people and millennials speak in payments, not prices. And what I mean by that is most people don't know what price of home they can afford off the top of their head if they haven't spoken to a lender, but they do know that they can afford $1,800 a month or whatever it is because they've been paying that in their rent, or because that, you know, whatever. So make sure that when you're talking to millennials, you're able to provide them with that estimated payment scenario. So there's great apps from title companies that enable you to provide those estimates. Or if you work with a great lender, we're happy to provide those to you on any property that they're interested in, what the actual payment breakdown would look at with taxes and insurance. So make sure that you're able to speak to them in payments, not prices. I have some great resources. I'll send out these links for you guys, but those are more on millennials and some of the stuff that I discussed today. Yeah, and that's really the end. So if you have any questions, I love to answer them. I know I went a few minutes over, so thanks for sticking with me. But I'll go into chat and see what we have to say. Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Yeah, well, I'll wait for any more questions that come in, but otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned a little bit about who millennials are, what they value, and really how to connect with them to have them as real estate clients. So good luck to you, stay well, and feel free to reach out to me if you need anything. My email's at the bottom of the screen. Have a great day. Thanks.